Hi, in today's lesson we're going to be talking about the scientific method. These are the 6 steps of the scientific method. You start out first with your problem. Sometimes it's referred to as the question. This is what we want to solve. Then we look up background information. This is stuff that we already know that could help us to solve the problem. It also could be things that other scientists know about the problem that we could look up through literary reviews and maybe asking various scientists. Once we have our background information, we are going to form what is referred to as a hypothesis. A hypothesis is an educated guess or a trialed solution. We call it an educated guess because we already have the background information that should help us figure out what should actually occur in our experimentation. It is generally written in an if-then statement. So if we do something, that's the conditions, then what do we predict is going to happen? And once we have our hypothesis, now we're ready to test our hypothesis. We test it through experimentation. So we are going to test the hypothesis by doing an experiment in science. Once we have the experiment completed, or while the experiment is being conducted, we're going to be collecting data, and that's in the form of numerical figures. And we're also going to be making observations, observing what is actually happening and writing it down. Then we create an analysis of what occurred. Sometimes the analysis portion is referred to as like the results. And finally, we will draw a conclusion. If our conclusion supports our hypothesis, we're done and problem solved. If it does not, then what we have to do is we have to go back and maybe think about our problem and change it a little bit, possibly. Then collect some more background information, create a new hypothesis, experiment, collect data and make observations and make analysis, and then draw a conclusion until basically what we thought was going to happen actually happens. And then we've solved our problem. Now, when we're doing experimentations, especially in science, we have to use what's referred to as controlled experiments. That's an experiment designed to determine whether a hypothesis is true or false. And in order to do that, we need to have two groups. And these two groups need to be the same. We have same demographics. When I refer to demographics, what I'm referring to is basically the gender, the race, and the age. So if we're doing a study on humans, we need to have the demographics of the individuals in the study in both groups be the equal proportions of the same gender, male or female. We need to have equal portions of the same race because genetically there might be some differences between the races. And also we need to have various age groups represented and equal distributions of each of the age groups because the chemical makeup of our body at different stages of life is a little bit different. Now, the two groups that we're going to have, one group is going to be referred to as the control group. That's going to be the standard of comparison. And all factors in the control group are going to be the same as in the experimental group, except for the control group is going to be receiving a placebo. So if we're doing a drug test, per se, the control group would get the placebo, which would be a sugar tablet. A tablet that doesn't contain any medicine, but it looks identical to the medicine, the capsule or whatnot that the medicine is contained in. And so the people that are taking the placebo don't know that they're taking a placebo. They think they're actually getting the real drug. This is needed because of psychological effect of being able to take a drug. Sometimes if someone thinks they're getting something that will cure them, then actually the symptoms will go away or they may be cured. And it wasn't actually the drug that did it, but the thought of getting the drug that does it. The second group is called the experimental group. The experimental group they get the experimental or the manipulative variable. That's what is being tested. Okay, so experimental or manipulative variable is the single factor, because remember you can only test one thing at a time. Everything else between the two groups has to be the same, and that's the single factor that is being tested. Now, there's two types of data that you're going to be taking. The two types would be quantitative data. Quantitative, if you think of quantitative, sounds like quantity, and that's basically what it is. It's measuring the quantity or giving you a numerical data of something rather than a quality. Qualitative data would be measuring a quality, and that's generally when you're making an observation. You would be taking qualitative data. Tomorrow you are going to be doing an activity that involves creating procedures for an experiment. This is also known as SOPs. So whenever we're using some type of equipment or doing some type of activity or experiment, we can develop what's referred to as an SOP, a standard operating procedure, in order to use that equipment or to do some type of process. And tomorrow's activity will involve that. Well, I hope you learned a lot about what the scientific method is and the stages, and look forward to seeing you again. Bye-bye.